Yo guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing sort of a monthly reading log slash wrap up sort of kind of video. I know they're typically called reading logs in like the MangaTube community, but I've noticed on BookTube a lot of people just call them wrap ups. The same sort of general idea. Just go over everything that I read during the month, give my general thoughts, and I also want to kind of go over what I'm going to be reading in the month of October. Now, we're already halfway through October, so this video is definitely pretty late. I've just been pretty busy lately. Haven't been able to get around to a lot of videos that I have wanted to make. So today, I'm actually off of school and off of work too, so I've had a lot of days or a lot of time today to have some fun, get my room cleaned up, and I'm going to be doing some reading here in a little bit, and I decided to take some time out to make some content, hopefully make a couple of videos and do a haul as well. But as for today's video, that is what we are doing. If you guys go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and definitely be sure to join the Discord community down in the description below. That'd be really awesome. We'd love to have you talk about some books. We're currently doing our book club for the Stormlight Archive. We just started The Way of Kings a few days ago, so we're all at the very beginning of that. And yeah, if you guys want in on that, there's still time before you get super behind, so definitely join that if you are interested. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, so the first book I am going to be talking about that I read, originally I was going to do these as their own videos, like do individual reviews for the books. But honestly, I think this format's easier, and if there is really a standout book that I want to talk about, then I'll do like an individual review on that. But for something that's like part of a series or something, maybe I'll do like a book one, and like the final book will be also like their separate reviews. But yeah, as for like long running series, I think I'll just wrap them up in like a like a reading log kind of thing. Anyways, that would be book 9 of Saxon Tales, Warriors of the Storm. Honestly, this wasn't my favorite book in the series. It's been so long now. I think I read this at probably the beginning of September, so definitely over a month ago. And I just don't remember this one being too stand out. Spoilers, we do get Brita back as one of like the main antagonists of this book, and honestly her presence was severely underwhelming. I know a little bit about the TV show. They changed some things in the TV show, and she's definitely more of a prominent character in the show. And I thought maybe there'd be a little bit more of like an emotional interaction between her and Uhtred in this book, since I thought that she'd play a bigger role, but honestly she didn't. And she ended up, like I said, being super underwhelming. I think her demise was interesting, with Uhtred's daughter and how she played a role in all that, and the politics with like the Norsemen and like everything going on there. Really interesting. Also the stuff with like Ethelfled and all of the politics of like the Wessex and Mercia and how they're interacting with Northumbria. That was interesting, but overall, like I feel like moving forward in this series, it definitely does feel a little meandering. Like there's a central goal where we want to be at each book, but Cornwell doesn't really know exactly how to spend an entire book getting to that point. So we just kind of like wander around doing nothing of importance a lot of the time, and it's mostly just filler, it seems like. And that seems like it has been with these two books, because I also read Flamebearer in September as well, and that seems to be sort of the common theme at the moment. There just doesn't seem to be like a clear direction of where it's going, and I've heard that only sort of carries on throughout the next couple of books. That especially, I've heard Sword of Kings, book 12, is probably the worst in the series, so I definitely I'm not looking forward. I mean, I'm looking forward to finishing the series, but I'm not looking forward to the reported quality of those books. So that's going to be kind of tough to get through. But yeah, overall, this book, it was okay. I do plan on going back and revising my rankings for Saxon Tales. I'll do a whole Saxon Tales video once I do finish the series. And if you guys don't know, it's my favorite series. So a lot of times when I have done reviews on it, I would give it a super high ranking, partly just out of pure bias and it being a joke. But if you look at my Goodreads profile, I have gone back and revised some stuff, like all like jokes aside, and giving it a genuine score. And I do plan on going back and re-ranking all of the books, giving them new scores in a separate video. But yeah, honestly, this book is probably 3.5 to 4 stars. Yeah, not the greatest, but it is what it is. It was still Saxon Tales, still Uhtred, and I mean, it's awesome. It always has been awesome, just that the quality has dipped. Next up, like I said before, we do have the Flame Bearer. This one I definitely liked more than Warriors of the Storm, so I'd probably give it 4 stars. Again, not excellent, but yeah, Uhtred, I mean, the Flame Bearer is Ida, the person who created Bebbanburg, so there is a huge emphasis on Bebbanburg and retaking Bebbanburg in this book. And spoiler alert, by the end of the book, Uhtred is now the Lord of Bebbanburg once again, which that's really awesome. You know, I've been looking forward to that the whole series, and the series probably could have ended here, so that's another question. I was like, where could the story go from here? But then there also is like, you know, there still is the story to tell as far as like the crown and whatnot, because you have like Ethelstan and Edward and everybody having to do with like the crown of Wessex and the creation of England. So there still is a story to tell, but now that Uhtred is the Lord of Bebbanburg, I'm questioning the amount of motivation he's going to have to continue, I guess. And also being, I mean, as old as he is, you'd figured he'd probably want to just live the rest of his life in the safety of Bebbanburg. So who knows how it's really going to go. But yeah, this book wasn't bad. The last probably 100 pages or so, whatever like the last little section of the book is, where he finally goes off to Bebbanburg to retake it after his whole interaction with whatever the dude's name is, the Elderman in Wessex, Edward's father-in-law. I can't remember his name off the top of my head for whatever reason. He's one of the most important characters, but after that whole thing, Uhtred goes, and yeah, it's really awesome. They lay siege to Bebbanburg, and they get in there. They have like the Scots on one side. There's a whole bunch of like backstabbing and stuff. It's really cool as they're like slowly progressing through Bebbanburg and like just taking and holding different sections of the fortress. It was really cool to read about. And yeah, I'm glad that my boy Uhtred finally retook the castle that he literally has spent his entire life in this entire series trying to get back. And not that it was a constant effort to get it back, but that has been his ultimate goal this entire time. So I think overall, I'm going to give this book 4 stars. Next up is a book that probably could have been its own video. I just didn't feel motivated to make a whole video about it, so I'm throwing it in here. And that is Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne. Yeah, I don't remember if we actually started reading this in September. I think we started reading it in August, but I finished it in September. It was for a book club that we do over on my Discord server. So definitely go check that out if you're interested. But yeah, we finished this, and you guys know I was hyping up the first book. I'm still hyping up the first book because Bloodsworn Saga is awesome, and John Gwynne is a great author. However, this entry in the series, this second book of the trilogy, was not as good as the first book. I loved the first book. It was super fast paced. Uh, it felt like something was happening every chapter. Developments were being made. Connections were being made as it does in a first book in the series. It definitely reminded me of the first A Song of Ice and Fire book, where it feels like every chapter, like something explosive is happening. That's the sort of vibe I got with the first book, and why I liked it so much, and why I liked the first A Song of Ice and Fire book so much. But this book, it felt very meandering, similar to what I was saying with Saxon Tales. Definitely not as bad though, but it definitely suffers from some just wandering, not really feeling like there's a clear goal all the time. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of this book, it's what, 600 pages or something? Yeah, 625 pages of content, and a lot of it really did just feel like fluff. Unimportant stuff of just like traveling, and I don't know. It didn't feel as explosive as the first book did. And I understand, there's a word for this. Or a term for this. It's middle book syndrome, and I definitely think that Hunger of the Gods suffers from that quite a bit. Not to say that this book was bad by any means. I still really enjoyed it. I love these characters, especially my boy Varg and my home squeeze Orca. Those are two of my favorite characters in fiction, honestly, since reading the first book. I love being with those characters, and like I said, this world and those character interactions. But overall, I mean, there was two new POV characters, being Bior and Guthavar, which were honestly terrible characters. Like Guthavar kind of grew on me, because at first he's just really annoying. We know him in the first book. He's just a douche. And now being in his head, he's definitely more of a comedic relief character. And he's a terrible person. But by the end of the book, I don't know. I sort of vibed with his character, just because he was really interesting to follow. And it was kind of funny in the worst of ways. And with Bior, it just felt like nothing was happening with his character. And I understand that the whole point of their characters is to give you insight on what is happening with the villains in this series. So you understand the full scope of all these moving pieces, so that you have eyes in each corner of this world. I understand that part. But especially with Bior, like, no development really happened with his character. All of his chapters were just spent complaining about, like, backstabbing his crew when he was with, what's it called, the Battle Grim. That's literally all his character does, is just complain about that. So, yeah, I mean, the two new POV characters weren't my favorite. Definitely was trying to get through their chapters as much as possible so that I could get back to the original trio. The first half of this book was definitely a little rough to get through, I will admit. The second half was a lot better, and especially like the last quarter of the book was really awesome and reminded me a lot more of what I liked about the first book. So yeah, the first half is just a little bit of a chore to get through. The second half is pretty great. So yeah, at least half of this book was amazing. And the first half, again, it wasn't that it was bad. It was just not what I was looking for. And I felt like it was under-delivered. However, yeah, it was still good. But hopefully the third book, whenever that comes out, I believe we have the title for it now. It's like Fury of the Gods or something like that. There was like this thing on Reddit where it was like the title of it was leaked. You guys can check that out if you want. Look into it. But as of now, I don't believe we have like an official release date or anything. So hopefully the trilogy is complete with, a really good ending and whatever needs to happen in the third book to make the series really good and wrap up well. But I'm excited for it, and yeah, hopefully it's better than this one. And the last book I'm going to be talking about that I read during the month of September, or this honestly could have been the beginning of this month. I think it was the beginning of October, whatever. I'm still going to talk about it. It came out at the end of September, and that is The Chalice of the Gods. This is the 6th book in the Percy Jackson series. There hasn't been another entry into this series in years, so it's a bit of like a reboot kind of thing. Anyways, this book was pretty bad. I'm gonna be real. I absolutely loved the original Percy Jackson series when I was in middle school, in Heroes of Olympus, when I read that, which is like the sequel series. Increased my love for the Riordan verse even more. I also read Magnus Chase when I was also in middle school. Didn't like that one as much, but the original series and those characters I absolutely loved. And I look back on it with fond memories. And I don't know if the problem with this book is that I had so much fond memories of reading it from when I was younger, and now that I'm older and have read more mature stuff and understand what like more advanced literature is like, just the way that I read this is I perceive it different from when I was younger. I don't know, like, and it warps my view, and so this seems worse now that I've read better stuff and I'm older. And maybe I would, when I was younger, I would have liked this a lot more. That could be, but maybe I just have to reread the original series. I don't remember it being as bad as this book. Maybe it is. I don't know, but this book wasn't good. I still had fun reading it, and I enjoyed it for what it was. It just wasn't great. And I feel like in the first series, there was always really high stakes with what was happening. Characters died. There was like always like a strict time limit on what they were doing. In this book, it just feels like there are no stakes really. While the other ones were like, oh yeah, our friend is kidnapped by monsters, they're gonna die, or like the world is gonna end. This one's like, I'm not gonna get to go to college. Like, okay. So the stakes were just really lowered. And one of the biggest problems I had with this book too was that our main characters are supposed to be seniors in high school, pretty much. I'm a senior in high school, and they're trying to get into college. But the problem is that they do not act like high schoolers whatsoever. And I understand that this is supposed to be a kid's book, but it is just so unrealistic. And it's kind of funny that I'm saying it's unrealistic because it's a book about like Greek gods and monsters and stuff. But I mean on a human and character writing level, the characters are just very unrealistic. In the way that they talk with each other, it seems just so juvenile that it was almost cringy at times. And a lot of the terminology used, it definitely felt like Riordan was trying to be relevant, like use of terms like, oh, that was on brand, or like, oh, these boomers, like, or references to like TikTok and stuff. Like, just reading it on the page, it made me cringe, and I had to do a double take. And I was like, really, dude? Yeah, it just, modern slang doesn't translate well to writing whatsoever, and it comes off more cringy than anything. And those were some of the biggest problems that I've had with this book that definitely hindered my experience overall. The plot wasn't great. I didn't care for it that much. I liked the character development between like exploring like Percy and Annabeth's relationship and how Grover fits in with all that. Like the relationships between our three main characters was good. I liked that. That's about all that it had going for it. I mean, some of the things were kind of funny, but again, in a very juvenile way. That just didn't click with me anymore. And again, like I said at the beginning of my review of this, that might just be because I'm older now, so those jokes and stuff don't click with me. but it doesn't help that they are supposed to be my age and older, and they still act like middle schoolers and talk like, I don't know, like elementary schooler jokes and stuff. And I'm like, it's just not realistic at all. And yeah, overall, might have to give it like between 2.5 and 3 stars. One of the worst books that I've read this year. This was pretty bad and disappointing considering I love the franchise. So those were all of the books that I've read during September, and even a little bit at the beginning of this month, even that, you know. Anyways, regardless, there's a couple of books that I am reading this month and will be reviewing at the end of the month or next month or whatever that I'm going to be talking about. And those, of course, are, I guess I don't have the jacket on it right now, but currently reading The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Stormlight Archive, of course. Reading this right now. I'm going to get a little bit more reading done here in a minute, but I'm about finished with part 1, so nearly 20% of the way through so far. I think it's been interesting, not super great. I understand that there's still more to come. I'm really invested in Kaladin's character specifically. Just before I've even started reading this series, Kaladin is just a character that I've heard a little bit about, and I've really wanted to like his character. So I hope that's not like manipulating my view of like I want to like it. So I'm basically like in doubt. I don't think that's what it is. I think I actually do find his character interesting, and I think his interactions with like the little Tinkerbell thing he's got is really cool too. I like that whole idea. It reminds me of Yuno from Black Clover, if you guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I like Kaladin so far. Shallan is kind of interesting, I guess. I'm excited to get more into like the plot starts moving, which hopefully it starts to do that here soon. I will say that there is a little bit of a learning curve for this book, at least for me. It's just a lot. Like the chapters feel really slow paced and they feel long, and they're dropping a lot of terminology that you don't really understand on you, and you've got to kind of piece it all together, or like use inferences to figure out what stuff is talking about. So yeah, it's not the easiest book to read, at least for me at the moment, but I'm getting there. It's definitely grown on me a little bit now that I've gotten a little bit further, and yeah, I'm excited to continue reading. And the next book that I'm currently reading at the moment is going to be Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. This is Secret Project 3. I take the dust jackets off my books. I started doing that, at least while I'm reading them, so I can pack them in my bag and not destroy them. Yeah. Anyways, this also hasn't been my favorite so far. Getting in the groove of things still. I think I'm 10%-ish through the book at the moment, and then hopefully I'll finish it next week. Yeah, I think so far, off the bat, it's been my least favorite of the Secret Projects, and I honestly think that Yumi here is going to end up being my least favorite. I liked Tress a lot, but honestly, I still think that Frugal Wizard has been my favorite. And I know that is a very unpopular opinion amongst Sanderson fans. I think Frugal Wizard is probably one of his worst books. I couldn't tell you why, because I absolutely loved it. It was really fun. I liked the characters and everything. And for such a self-contained plot, I had a lot of fun with it. So, yeah. But as for Yumi, like I said, I'm getting a little off track here. Probably been in the same amount of pages or same amount of content that both Tress and Frugal Wizard had. This has had the slowest start, and just it's been the least engaging. And now, what else do I have left to read this month? Honestly, I am kind of debating, should I continue with my Saxon Tales? I do have War of the Wolf here. I could work on finishing the last 3 books of the series. I do want to do that before the year ends, but I think what I'm actually going to end up doing is start Red Rising. These books aren't super long at all, and yeah, I'm going to at least try to read the original trilogy this year. That's something I do want to do. So that might be what I read next once I finish Yumi here. I think I am going to be picking up the next Red Rising book, and hopefully you guys will see that in my wrap up and reading log next month. Yeah, that is going to be about it for today's video. I'm sorry about a little bit of rambling. Haven't done one of these in a while. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, again, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, because I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.